Ethan had been traveling through the mining sector of the Karen Expanse for days, and his boots were worn from constant patrol. The sky above the jagged, rust-colored mountains was a pale, dusty orange, the sun barely making a dent through the thick atmosphere. He adjusted the straps of his pack and glanced over the horizon. Nothing moved, not a single drone, not a distant vehicle. He felt the solitude press down on him, yet this was his routine. Human scouts were trained to endure isolation, to survive even when it seemed the universe had forgotten them. A sudden glint caught his eye near a rocky ridge. It was small, metallic, and moving just enough to make him curious. Ethan crouched behind a jagged boulder and peered through his scope. At first, he thought it was some abandoned mining equipment left behind by the corporations that littered this planet. But then, a shadow shifted, and he realized it wasn't equipment. It was alive. The figure staggered along the rocks, moving with the uneven grace of someone who was injured. As it came closer, Ethan could see her. She was tall, taller than most humans, with long limbs and skin that shimmered faintly in the fading light. Her eyes glowed faintly green, intelligent and alert, darting from one side to the other. She carried herself like a warrior, even while struggling to move. Ethan's first thought was caution. Alien life forms were rarely friendly, and this one looked like she could crush him if provoked. But she was wounded, limping heavily, and a jagged gash ran across her shoulder, dark blood seeping through a torn sleeve. He swallowed, weighing his options. He was trained to offer aid if possible, especially if the life form seemed intelligent. And this one did. "Easy now," he murmured to himself, stepping carefully from behind the rock. He raised his hands to show he meant no harm. The alien froze. Her glowing eyes locked on him and she bared sharp teeth, not in aggression but in warning. "Stay back," she hissed, her voice low, rough and strange, resonating in a way human ears could just barely process. Ethan moved closer, slow and deliberate, making no sudden movements. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. "You're hurt, let me help." Her gaze narrowed. She shifted her weight slightly, then hissed, "Cool it, Beasty, you'll break my back." Ethan froze for a moment, surprised. The words were sharp, almost humorous in context, but the tone carried pain. Her body tensed, her muscles ready to spring, but clearly she couldn't put much strength behind it. "Just stay still," he said, trying to keep his tone calm and steady. He reached into his pack and pulled out his medkit, moving slowly to avoid alarming her. "No, I don't need," she began, but her words were cut off by a sudden wince as she shifted her shoulder. The injury was worse than he first thought. Ethan ignored her protests. He knelt carefully beside her, spreading a small cloth over the wound to examine it. "You need this cleaned," he said simply. "Infection will kill you faster than any battle." Her eyes flicked to him, wary. Then with a reluctant sigh, she let her body relax just enough for him to touch her shoulder. "Hurry, but don't break anything," she warned. He worked methodically, cleaning the gash, applying antiseptic with steady hands. The alien woman flinched occasionally, hissing in pain or annoyance, but she didn't pull away. She studied him, curious despite herself. "Why do you help me?" she asked after a long pause, her voice quieter now, almost questioning. Ethan looked at her carefully. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said, "and because you need it. I've seen too many die when someone could have helped." Her glowing eyes softened, though just a fraction. "Humans, you surprise me. Most run away or worse." He shrugged. "I didn't learn to turn away from a life in pain. Doesn't matter if it's human or you." He tried to keep his tone casual, but there was a sincerity in his voice that he hoped reached her. For a few minutes, silence fell over the rocky ridge, broken only by the rustling of the wind and the occasional distant rock slide. Ethan worked steadily, applying clean bandages and checking the alien woman's injuries. Her breathing became less strained, and though she didn't relax completely, the tension in her body eased slightly. "You're skilled," she muttered finally, a grudging admission. "Most who touch me end up breaking me." Ethan allowed a small smile. I'm trained for this. I've treated worse than a back injury. She snorted softly, a strange sound that was part amusement, part disbelief. Trained? You look like a soft creature. I've been called worse, he replied. A brief moment of levity passed between them, and the alien woman let herself lean slightly into his care. Ethan noticed her other injuries, bruises along her arms and legs, some older, some fresh. Clearly, she had been running for a long time, escaping something dangerous. "Who are you running from?" he asked gently. Her eyes darkened and she looked away. "The ones who want me dead. My people, they don't always see me as a person. I'm a scout and a liability." Her voice trembled slightly, but she quickly masked it with pride. "You wouldn't understand." Ethan shook his head. "Try me. I've seen humans fight their own wars and survive against all odds I can imagine." There was a pause, then she finally spoke, almost in a whisper. "You're human. You shouldn't be here. You're weak." "Maybe," Ethan said calmly, "but weak or strong, I don't leave someone to die if I can help them." Her glowing eyes met his, searching for deception but finding none. Slowly, she allowed him to finish tending her wounds. As he worked, he noticed her observing the small medkit tools, the way he applied the bandages, how carefully he treated each injury. Her suspicion mixed with curiosity. When he finished, he stepped back and held out a small, portable stim device to accelerate healing. She hesitated, then took it cautiously. A soft hum filled the air as her injuries began to knit together under the technology. She flexed her shoulders experimentally. HMPH. "Not terrible," she admitted grudgingly. Ethan let out a quiet laugh. "I'll take that as a compliment." She looked at him sharply. "Don't take it too far, human. My back is still very fragile." "Noted," he said, still smiling. The sun dipped lower behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. The wind carried a sharp chill, and Ethan realized they couldn't stay here for long. "You need to move," he said. "Those who hurt you, they'll come looking. You can't stay exposed." Her expression hardened again. "I can handle myself." "I know you can," he replied. "But right now you're weak. We can move slowly together. I can help you reach safer ground." She hesitated, torn between pride and necessity. Finally, after a long pause, she nodded just slightly. "Fine, but no funny tricks, human." "None," Ethan assured her. As they began moving, Ethan noticed how different her gait was, how her limbs seemed to stretch in ways unfamiliar to him. She was alien, yes, but the determination in her stride reminded him of the bravest humans he had ever known. Step by step, they navigated the uneven terrain, Ethan keeping a careful eye on both her and the surrounding cliffs. At one point, she stumbled over a jagged rock, and Ethan caught her quickly. "Careful," he warned. She yelped, half in pain, half in surprise. "I told you, don't touch me like that." "I didn't," he said, though she gave him a sharp look. "I just kept you from breaking again." "Beasty," she muttered under her breath, shaking her head. "You humans." Despite her grumbling, she allowed him to continue guiding her. Slowly, a bond began to form, not of friendship yet, but of trust. She needed him to survive, and he needed her to trust him. And in this harsh, unforgiving landscape, that fragile trust might be the only thing keeping them alive. By the time the sun disappeared completely, the alien woman and the human found a shallow cave to rest. Ethan checked her injuries again, ensuring the bandages held. She watched him silently, her glowing eyes reflecting the faint light of the horizon. "You didn't run away," she said finally. "I don't run from someone in need," he replied simply. She stared at him for a long moment, then finally nodded, as if accepting a truth she hadn't admitted even to herself. "Maybe humans are not all weak." Ethan smiled softly. "And maybe not all aliens are as untrusting as they seem." The wind howled outside the cave, and they settled into an uneasy rest. Both were aware that tomorrow would bring new dangers, but for now, they survived. And in that survival, a fragile connection had begun, a connection that might change both of their lives forever. The night was darker than Ethan had expected. The cave offered some shelter, but the wind outside whistled through jagged rocks, carrying the scent of dust and danger. Lyra lay a few feet away, her glowing eyes barely visible in the dim light. Despite her injuries being mostly treated, she kept one hand on her shoulder, as if willing the pain to stay contained. Ethan sat with his back against the wall, checking his equipment. His comm device crackled faintly, but the signal was weak. This part of the Karen expanse was off-grid, far from human stations. That isolation was both a risk and an advantage. Out here, he could move freely, but dangers, both natural and sentient, were unpredictable. "Why do you insist on helping me?" Lyra asked, her voice low and wary, breaking the silence. Ethan glanced at her, trying to read her expression. "Because I don't like seeing anyone in pain. Doesn't matter who they are." She snorted softly, the sound a mixture of amusement and disbelief. "Even if they could kill you in a blink," he shrugged. "Even then, you'd be surprised at how strong humans can be when it matters." Lyra studied him for a long moment, then shook her head. "You humans always thinking you're strong, but strength alone does not protect you here." "I've learned to survive," he said quietly. "I don't just rely on strength." Her glowing eyes softened just slightly. For the first time, she didn't glare at him or try to intimidate. Instead, she seemed to consider his words. "Perhaps you are different, not like the others." The night stretched on, filled with the occasional gust of wind and distant echoes from the jagged cliffs. Ethan knew they couldn't stay long. The hostile faction that had injured Lyra was still out there, and she needed to reach safety. By dawn, Ethan had packed their supplies. Lyra moved carefully, leaning on him when the terrain demanded it. Each step was cautious, yet she kept her head high, a warrior's pride evident despite her vulnerability. "We should take the ridge," Ethan said, pointing toward a rocky incline that would give them a better view of the surrounding terrain. "From there we can see if it's safe to move forward." Lyra nodded, trusting him for the first time to guide her. They climbed slowly, Ethan helping her over each obstacle. When they reached the ridge, the view stretched out endlessly. Jagged rocks gave way to plains dotted with alien flora, and in the distance, the faint glow of what looked like a settlement flickered. "Your people live there?" Ethan asked. Lyra's eyes narrowed as she studied the settlement, still cautious. "Yes, but I cannot approach openly. If they see me like this, they may not recognize me. Or worse, they may attack me." Ethan frowned. "Then we'll have to be careful. Stealth is better than speed." The journey continued, and as the hours passed, they faced dangers at every turn. Sharp rocks tore at their clothing, dust storms reduced visibility to almost nothing, and they narrowly avoided unstable cliffs that could have sent them plummeting to the ground below. At one point, a pack of wild creatures, no larger than a human but with razor-sharp claws and glowing eyes, ambushed them. Lyra instinctively drew a small energy blade from her belt, but she was still weak from her injuries. Ethan acted quickly, using a makeshift flare from his pack to startle the creatures. They hissed and retreated, but the encounter left them both shaken. "You humans, you are reckless," Lyra said, panting. "And you aliens are too stubborn to accept help," Ethan replied, offering her a hand to steady her. She hesitated, then took it, and for a moment their hands stayed clasped longer than necessary. Neither spoke, but the bond between them grew. As they moved on, Lyra began to share more of her story. She told Ethan about her people, the way they valued strength, loyalty, and cunning above all else. She spoke of missions where scouts like her were sent into dangerous territories to gather intelligence, often alone. Her words painted a picture of a society that was harsh, unforgiving, but deeply structured. Ethan listened, fascinated. "It sounds intense, but you've survived because you're smart, not just strong." She gave a small smile, almost imperceptible. "Perhaps. But humans, you rely too much on hope and improvisation. That can be dangerous." "And yet," Ethan said, "here I am surviving because I adapt. Maybe we're not so different." Lyra's eyes flickered with a mix of surprise and amusement. "Perhaps, but don't get used to trust. It is earned, not given. I don't need to be trusted completely, he said with a grin, just enough to get us through this journey. Their trek led them into a dense forest of alien trees, their trunks thick and twisted, leaves glowing faintly under the dim light of Charon's twin moons. The forest was silent, almost unnaturally so, and Ethan's instincts screamed caution. "Stay close," he whispered. "Something feels off." Lyra's eyes glowed brighter as she scanned their surroundings. "I sense it too, predators or spies." We moved carefully. Hours passed and the tension remained high. Every rustle, every flicker of shadow could be a threat. Ethan and Lyra moved like ghosts, silent and deliberate, relying on instinct and experience. At one point, they came across a small clearing with the remains of what appeared to be a recent skirmish. Burn marks scarred the ground and the skeletal remains of a drone lay twisted nearby. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They were here recently. We are not far behind." "We'll have to speed up," Ethan said. "But carefully. Don't let them see us until we're ready." Lyra nodded, and together they moved through the forest with practiced caution. Ethan noticed how she had begun to trust him more, following his lead without protest. He felt a quiet sense of pride, knowing that his calm approach had earned her respect. As night fell again, they reached the edge of a cliff overlooking a valley. Below, a river of glowing liquid, alien in composition but beautiful, snaked through the terrain. Beyond it lay the faint lights of what could be her settlement. "We can make it," Ethan said softly. "Just a bit further." Lyra looked at him, her glowing eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and skepticism. "I will not allow myself to fall into a trap. If they expect me, they will find only ghosts." "I'll be your ghost," Ethan replied lightly, earning a small chuckle from her. They descended carefully into the valley, the glowing river casting eerie reflections on the surrounding rocks. Every step required focus, every movement measured. Yet despite the danger, Ethan felt a strange exhilaration. Humans were often underestimated in alien territories, but moments like this proved their resilience, their ability to adapt and survive. Suddenly, a faint sound reached their ears, a low hum almost mechanical. Ethan froze. "That's not natural," he whispered. "Stay behind me." Lyra nodded, her blade ready. They crept toward the source and found a small patrol drone scanning the valley. Ethan's heart raced, but he remained calm. He signaled to Lyra, and together they moved silently, avoiding the drone's sensors. Once past, they allowed themselves a brief pause. Lyra's voice was quiet but tinged with admiration. "You move with precision like one of my people." Ethan shook his head with a smile. "I learned it differently. Humans rely on improvisation, instinct, and sometimes luck." Lyra considered that, then nodded slowly. "Luck, humans have a strange way of surviving with it. Perhaps there is more to your kind than I thought." Finally, they reached the edge of the settlement's outer boundary. Lights flickered and silhouettes moved in the distance. Ethan's senses were on high alert, ready for any threat. Lyra's gaze hardened. "We must enter carefully. If they see me like this, they may not believe it is me." "I'll be beside you," Ethan said. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Lyra's eyes softened, and for the first time she allowed a small smile. "Then let us proceed, human. But do not slow me down, I am faster than I look." Ethan nodded, and together they stepped into the settlement, shadows among shadows, allies forged in trust and courage. The journey had been dangerous, but it had changed them both. She had seen the resilience of humans firsthand, and he had witnessed the strength and intelligence of an alien warrior. As they disappeared into the settlement, neither knew what awaited them next. But one thing was certain. The bond formed through shared danger and mutual respect was unbreakable. And in a universe full of uncertainty, that bond could be the difference between life and death. The settlement loomed before them, a cluster of structures made from alien metals and glowing panels, nestled between jagged rocks and a slow-moving river of iridescent liquid. Ethan could see small figures moving along pathways, some armed, others simply observing. Lyra's body tensed, her glowing eyes scanning every detail. She had returned to her people before, but never in such a vulnerable state. "They will notice me," she murmured, her voice quiet but tense. "If they see me like this, there is no guarantee of welcome." "We'll make sure they don't see anything they shouldn't," Ethan said calmly. "Just follow my lead." Lyra glanced at him, her expression a mix of pride and cautious trust. You really think you can keep up with me?" "I'm not going to let anything happen to you," he replied firmly. "That's my promise." Step by step, they approached the perimeter, using shadows and low walls for cover. Ethan had learned quickly how to move in alien terrain, observing Lyra's instinctive motions and adapting. The human's reputation for improvisation and flexibility, which she had begun to respect, now proved essential. As they neared the settlement, a patrol drone hovered near one of the entrance gates. Lyra froze, instinctively readying her blade. Ethan held up a hand, signaling patience. He pulled a small device from his pack and tapped a few controls. A faint pulse emitted, disrupting the drone's sensors. The drone wavered, briefly flickering, and then moved on, oblivious to their presence. Lyra raised an eyebrow, impressed despite herself. "You tricked their machine. Clever." "I told you humans rely on more than strength," Ethan said with a grin. They slipped through the gate unnoticed and moved into the settlement's heart. The structures were taller here, and alien symbols glowed faintly on walls and panels. Civilians and warriors alike moved quickly, eyes alert, scanning their surroundings. Every step could be dangerous, yet Ethan remained calm, relying on training and instinct. Suddenly, a group of armed aliens stepped into their path. Lyra's body stiffened. "They've recognized me," she whispered. "Prepare yourself." Ethan stepped slightly forward. "I've got your back, let's see what happens." The leader of the group, a tall alien with glowing amber eyes, stepped closer. "Lyra," he asked, his voice sharp and questioning. What happened to you?" "I was ambushed," she replied, her voice steady but firm. "I am fine now, thanks to human assistance." The group exchanged wary glances. Some stepped closer, curious, others suspicious. Ethan noticed tension rising, a mixture of disbelief and concern. This was a critical moment. The leader studied Ethan for a moment, his eyes narrowed. "This human, he aided you?" "Yes," Lyra said without hesitation. "He saved my life." The leader's gaze flicked to Ethan, sizing him up. "Humans are weak," he said cautiously. "They cannot survive in our world alone." Ethan met his gaze steadily. "Maybe, but humans adapt. We survive because we think, we plan, and we act when it matters. That's why I'm here and why she's still alive." A quiet murmur ran through the group. Lyra's eyes softened slightly, her pride swelling at Ethan's defense. "Do you see now?" she whispered. The leader's amber eyes met Ethan's, searching for signs of weakness, and found none. "Perhaps there is more to your kind than we believed," he admitted after a tense moment. Lyra stepped forward, a small smile on her face. "Then let us move. There is much to discuss, but first, safety." Ethan and Lyra were escorted through the settlement, wary eyes following their every step. He noticed how civilians and warriors alike were curious but respectful. His calm, confident demeanor, combined with Lyra's presence, drew respect rather than hostility. In a central chamber, Lyra was given a place to rest, and Ethan was allowed to stay nearby. The room was sparse but functional, with glowing panels providing soft illumination. Lyra removed her remaining armor, revealing the faint bruises that told of her long journey. "You've done well, human," she said quietly, her voice carrying genuine admiration. "Not many could have managed this." Ethan shook his head. "It wasn't just me. You survived too." "Courage is not mine alone." Lyra studied him for a moment, her glowing eyes reflecting a mixture of respect and something softer, almost warmth. "You fight differently from our warriors. You think, adapt, survive. That is unusual, but it works." The next day, Ethan and Lyra began formal discussions with her people. They shared information about the ambush, the hostile faction, and the dangers surrounding the region. Ethan's insights into strategy, improvisation, and survival impressed even the elders. He spoke of human tenacity, their ability to adapt, and their willingness to face danger head-on. Lyra watched as her people slowly accepted his words. Some were skeptical, but many nodded, recognizing the value of a human ally in their ongoing conflicts. The admiration in her eyes grew. This human, who had been a stranger only days ago, had proven himself not just capable but exceptional. As the day progressed, a new threat emerged. Scouts reported the hostile faction approaching the settlement, moving swiftly and aggressively. The settlement prepared for defense, but Lyra turned to Ethan. "This is your moment, prove your worth." Ethan's jaw tightened. "We'll do it together." In the chaos that followed, Ethan demonstrated human ingenuity and courage. He devised traps using the environment, improvised weapons from alien technology, and coordinated defensive movements with precision. Lyra fought alongside him, her injuries forgotten in the heat of battle. Together, they became a unit that no one expected, combining human adaptability with alien skill. The hostile faction was relentless, but the combined efforts of Ethan, Lyra, and her people turned the tide. One by one, the attackers fell back, unable to match the unpredictable strategy of the human and the fierce resolve of Lyra. After the battle, the settlement was quiet but safe. Ethan checked on Lyra, noticing the faint lines of exhaustion etched on her face. "You fought well," he said softly. "So did you," she replied, her voice sincere. You are more than I imagined. Humans can be more than weak. You have courage, intelligence, and strength in ways I did not believe possible." Ethan allowed himself a small smile. "Thanks. That means a lot coming from you." Lyra's gaze softened. She reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of respect, trust, and connection. "You saved me, not just my life, but my honor. You have proven that humans are not to be underestimated." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. This alien warrior, once wary and proud, now regarded him as an equal. "I didn't do it alone. We faced it together." Her eyes glowed faintly brighter, a sign of satisfaction among her people. "Together," she agreed. In the following days, Ethan was formally welcomed among Lyra's people, a rare honor. He shared knowledge, strategies, and ideas, bridging human ingenuity with alien tradition. Lyra guided him, but she also listened, learning from him as he had learned from her. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the jagged horizon, Lyra approached Ethan. She looked at him with a mixture of pride and warmth. "You are not just a human who survived. You are a human who earned respect, friendship, and trust. That is rare in our world." Ethan smiled. "I only did what anyone would do, help someone in need, but I'll admit, it feels good to have your respect." Lyra chuckled softly, a sound that was almost musical. "Do not take it lightly. You have proven the truth. Humans are remarkable. Perhaps, one day, we will see more of this courage among your people." Ethan's heart swelled with pride. In a universe filled with fear, hostility, and uncertainty, humanity had shone brightly through one small act of bravery and persistence. He had faced danger, adapted, and survived, earning trust and admiration from a people who had doubted humans for centuries. As they stood together under the twin moons, the wind rustling the alien trees, Ethan realized something profound. Courage, intelligence, and compassion were universal. Strength was not just in muscle or weaponry. It was in the ability to act rightly, to protect, and to persevere. Lyra's glowing eyes met his, and she allowed a rare, genuine smile. "Do not think your journey ends here, human. Many will doubt you, many will challenge you, but you have shown the truth of your kind." "I will keep showing it," Ethan said quietly. The bond forged between human and alien warrior was more than survival. It was proof of what humans could achieve when courage met heart, when skill met determination, and when trust overcame fear. In this small settlement on a distant planet, the legend of a human who dared to help, adapt, and survive would be remembered. And somewhere deep inside, both Ethan and Lyra knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had made its mark, not through conquest, but through courage, wisdom, and the unbreakable will to do what was right.